Hello, my name is David Hottman. I'm the CEO and chairman of Orestone Mining Corporation, and Orestone is headquartered in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and it is a company focused on gold and copper exploration in the province of British Columbia. And the management team has a tremendous amount of experience on a global basis in porphyries, as well as putting primarily gold and silver deposits into production.
Great. David, very nice to meet you. Thank you for the introduction. What is your flagship project, and at what stage is it?
Our flagship project is a copper-gold porphyry exploration target. The target was developed over the last decade when basically just some IP was done along a logging road, and some preliminary drilling yielded some encouraging exploration results. And since that time, we have continued to develop out the target. There's 20 to 120 meters of glacial till over the area, and it's a flat plateau at approximately 900 meters above sea level. And so the glacial till means that you've got to use geophysics and drilling to refine the target or make the discovery. And what we've been able to do to date is to develop a 2 kilometer by 2 kilometer area of alteration, and it could be much larger than that. That's based on drilling and geophysics. We have coincident mag lows and some IP lines that have gone through that are very encouraging. But the most exciting development here in the last number of years is last year we did an aerial MT survey, and MT is magnetotellurics, and as you know, it uses the magnetic fields of the Earth, and you're looking for disruptions in that, and measuring chargeability and resistivity, and that has helped us to refine the location of the target, being less resistive and higher chargeability, indicating metals. And it is in the center of this 2 by 2 kilometer alteration halo that we've established.
It's interesting that it's coincident. It's good that you've got the kind of the high chargeability coincident with your alteration. Sorry, it broke up a bit. You're saying that you picked up the alteration through drilling. Is that how you define that alteration?
Yes, alteration is established through drilling because of the glacial till cover, and we've drilled through over this area. Within the outer parts of the alteration halo, you've got some potassic and sericite alteration, lots more pyrite, and as you come in towards the center, you tend to have a little bit less pyrite, and you start getting into dikes, and actually quite a thick layer of altered volcanics, in some places 400 or 500 meters thick, where you've got a background, or in some cases some decent grades of gold. And then the closest drill holes we have to what is now the established geophysical target, those holes have hit porphyry dikes that are 3/4 of a gram to a couple of grams a ton, with a lower amount of copper. And so that's also evidence that we're getting into closer into the primary porphyry target.
Now, to cut to the chase of it, your market capitalization is pretty tiny, and you're going to need to raise some capital to. I don't know what your cash position is, but junior companies always need to raise money. Constantly raising, for always closing. What are your thoughts? What's your cash position, and what's your thoughts about how you're going to raise money for this, and kind of what quantum? Because drilling deep porphyry holes isn't the cheapest of things to be doing.
No, it's not. And exploration isn't for the people that are faint of heart. And wealth is created at the end of the drill bit, and that's where we like to be in the industry. And something I didn't touch on. I'll get to the capital structure and whatnot as we go forward. But basically exploration. We've been involved with discovering tens of millions of ounces of gold, whether it's early stage modeling or off of an entire deposit, two in Chile and with Bema Gold and Arizona Star
Colorado.
was the name of the other company, and then
Oh,
a group of
Arizona
us
Star.
split off. Yeah, a group of us split off and formed El Dorado Gold. And then we discovered the Kizildag deposit in Turkey, which is 12 million ounces. And all of these deposits are primarily, they're called gold porphyries, even though they have probably an average of 900 to 1500 ppb or ppm copper in them. They're basically gold deposits with low-grade copper. And even at that level of copper, it doesn't get in the way of heap leach generally. But anyway, so we've been involved in finding a lot of ounces in porphyry, gold porphyry deposits. So even though we are a junior and underfunded, as you say, juniors are always looking for money. Porphyries are very expensive to explore, and on that basis, we'll always be underfunded. But we run a pretty tight ship, as minuscule of corporate overhead as possible, and put as much money in the ground as possible. So that being said, we have about less than $100,000 in the bank. We have a $2 million market cap. And the concept is that we've just started some investor awareness programs. We'd like to raise $1 million to drill 2 or 3 holes. These holes will be approximately $300,000 a piece if they go to target depth. And our concept here is to drill a couple of 1,000-meter holes. Because we haven't drilled right over the center of the porphyry target, drilling just outside of it, when we contact bedrock at, call it 120, 130 meters of depth, we get into alteration and even some dikes and gold mineralization. So there's no reason that this porphyry couldn't come to the bedrock contact and start at that level. But the concept is in exploration, we couldn't say, well, we're going to go out and drill a 300-meter hole at a cost of $100,000 and make a discovery. You have to plan on drilling right down the throat of it as the target exists, and on that basis, there'll be 1,000-meter holes. And the concept is that we'll drill 2 holes into this primary target. In terms of financing, obviously we'd like to do it at higher prices. The company only has a $2 million market cap and 3-4 Canadian cents a share. So it is a tremendous opportunity if we're successful. It's one of those that you look back and it was the biggest win of your investing career. If we're not successful and we need to move over this direction or that direction a few hundred meters, there are also several other big targets along a big regional structure that we see, and so that's kind of the plan going forward. And there's a sea of alteration, a couple of kilometers by a couple of kilometers, and in a nutshell, as we get in closer to the center, these dikes have almost a gram a ton gold. It's got to be coming from somewhere. That's an awful lot of rock to be altered. And the MT survey points to a really conductive body or low resistance body in the center of this anomaly. So that's the plan going forward. In terms of timing, we would like to drill in the summertime. We're already here in the middle of May. So in the next couple of months, we'd like to raise some money and around $1 million.
What's the area like? Do you have to? Will this be a helicopter supported program?
No, there's a number of years ago as you said, it's a plateau about 900 meters. We're about 40 kilometers outside of a smallish logging town. There used to be 3 or 4 mills, to give you an idea of size. The road infrastructure is fantastic. A number of years ago, the region was hit with a pine beetle infestation, which killed the pine trees for hundreds and hundreds of miles in any direction. Not all of them, but actually up from the Yukon all the way down into, I think, Northern California. There was an awful lot of forest. So what's happened is there's a huge amount of clear cutting, and this clear cutting, they had to push roads in. And so our exploration area is crisscrossed by roads, and all of our permitting for drilling is right on roads. And so there's no disturbance. We can drill pretty much all year round. There is a little bit of time in the spring and in the fall when it's a little bit too wet and mucky. And you just don't want to cause any extra damage to roads and stuff. There's no bans necessarily. It's just we don't want to cause any damage to roads. It's cheaper. So we can pretty much drill year round.
I see in your presentation you kind of got the sketch of the kind of the intruded Pluton and the dikes coming off to one side and the drill holes going down, and your most recent round of drilling, your drill results. When were those drill holes done?
I think the holes depicted on the graphic you're thinking about are C1903 and C2101 and 2102 is down to the south. And actually, that's very interesting because those were along a road, and those holes were angled or drilled to the northeast, and that is, imagine the primary zone is here, and the 3 drill holes were drilled at this angle towards you, and they weren't drilled into the zone. So the key there is if it's drill hole C19 dash whatever, C20 dash whatever, that's the year that it was drilled.
Those are the years.
Yeah, and right. So the 2101, we felt that we were still a little bit too far north. We stepped out 800 meters, so just about a kilometer to the southeast, and drilled another hole, and we hit dikes there as well. And that's almost a kilometer down in that direction. So it's a big system. It's a bit of not necessarily bad luck that we stepped over the top of it, but the MT survey shows that the zone is right in between those particular holes.
Oh, okay. So the plan is to come back and to kind of drill in between the holes to pick up the MT survey.
Yes, and we have 61 drill holes or drill sites permitted for drilling, and of course you can take the same drill site and drill at different azimuth and different angles. So we've got plenty of coverage to handle the early part of the discovery. In terms of the size, I think elsewhere in the presentation you'll note that at a depth of 300 meters, the MT survey has given us a fairly good bullseye, if you will, that is 350 meters by about 1,200 meters. And then as you go a little bit deeper, I think it's at 700 meters of depth from surface. It's a half a kilometer by a kilometer and a half. And in terms of being able to put together tonnage, if we're looking at something that's 500 meters cubed, that's 300 million tons. And if you get close to a gram a ton, well, there's a lot of ounces there. So it's a big target. It's the right time. And although we are underfunded, as you brought up, this is where you earn your stripes as a management team and make your shareholders money.
It's a brutal market out there in terms of capital raises. I mean, I've I know only too well how tough it is. I mean, where are you going to go? What's your target audience for this? Are you speaking to majors? Are you talking to high net worth individuals, people that you've worked with before, who've invested with you before? You know,
how the hell are you going to raise money, young man?
Well, I find when it's tough, you've got to make a lot more calls, and then everybody knows about it, and no one buys the stock. But in a good time, you just go make one or two phone calls, and boom, you've got your capital raised done.
Exactly.
But how? So my question is exactly as you said. How the hell?
Yeah, right. Well, we had a couple of trade shows a little bit earlier this year, and to touch on one of those points. We had at the AME, which is it's called the Roundup here in Vancouver, and it's Canadian or Western Canadian exploration. We had 6 or 7 intermediate to major gold producers through the booth, run them through the presentation, and the first response from all of them was, "Do you want to do a joint venture?" And our response was no. We want to raise the money and move it forward and make the discovery ourselves. It can get out of hand and too large for a junior in no time. But making the discovery, we're at that position now with the target. Making the discovery is what we want to do. So then several of the majors said, "Well, then do you want some money?" And the problem is, even if you could get a major to invest something as small as $500,000, they own too big of a chunk of you to make it worthwhile. And I ran numbers and saying, okay, well, the stock's 3 cents. Well, if I can get them to put money in at 15 cents, and that'll help with the capital raise in the regular markets as well, and credibility. It's still, you end up getting swamped by a very small amount of money from a major. So heretofore, most of our investment has come from high net worth individuals, a few brokers. There's always a broker that wants a commission, and we can raise money either on a normal basis, or what's called flow through, and you flow through the tax advantage to an investor, because there are credits for conducting exploration, and then there are bonus credits in British Columbia when you're exploring in this pine beetle area. And so those types of the flow through, we can get a premium of 30%, 40%. If it's a charitable flow through, 50%, 60% premium to market. So to answer your question, it is a lot tougher. I've never shied away from taking on this kind of challenge. Actually, once in El Dorado, we had a hostile takeover that first in Canadian history that didn't go through at $6. The stock dropped to about $3.50 a month later. And CEO says, "Well, Dave, we need to raise some money." So I said, well, why don't we take it to $10 and raise $100 million? And it took 5 months, but from $3.50 to $10. This stock is 3-4 cents, and it's a little bit more intimidating than $3 to $10. But it's earlier stage exploration. It's finding the investor that wants to take a punt. Small amount of money on the table can be huge rewards, and that's the plan. Is when it's a little bit tougher like this, you have to work a little bit harder.
Absolutely, and sometimes it's harder to take something from 3.5 cents to 10 cents and raise $1 million than it is to take something from $3.50 to $10 and raise $100 million.
Yes, and I look in the mirror and I'm looking and it's like, well, why is this so intimidating? And the thing is, $3 to $10, you've got mines into production, and you've got 20 drill rigs turning around the face of the earth, and you've got 4 deposits you're drilling off, and there's news, there's energy, and that was back at $3.50 gold. We've got almost $2,000 gold, or a relatively buoyant gold market, and but junior exploration are just not really popular right now, and that's where smart money. You've just got to find the pockets of smart money.
David, good luck. I mean, it's tough because you're competing with every other junior that's also trading at a discount to kind of historic valuations, and so it's not just does someone want to take a punt on this particular porphyry, but they've also got to consider that they could put it into any other number of juniors where they've got a different suite of catalysts available to them.
Sure.
I think really just it seems to me that the kind of the key next stage is to kind of get that money in, see what the capital structure looks like, and what the timelines are to being able to execute a drill rig, because presumably availability of rigs, it's a factor, and mobilization. How long does that look like?
We've had the same driller for a number of years, and he's a large shareholder as well. We can get rigs on, I wouldn't say a really short notice, but on a moderate time frame, 30, 45 days type of thing. And so really it comes down to, as an investment, it's faith in management, and have they done all the science necessary to be successful here. And on the capital structure, 56 million shares outstanding, a $2 million market cap. The other side of the financing, even if we have a fully diluted 85 million shares, a good sized discovery can go to many hundreds of millions of dollars. So there's still 10 to 100 times upside in something like this.
Excellent. Yes, and with associated risk and reward, because the rewards
Sure.
are high, but the risks are also high because it's
Exactly.
a very early stage target, and the exploration statistics on drilling prospects are pretty intimidating as well.
Right. Well, and that's why I say we've done the layers of science and years of exploration, and you hit a hole, and then you try and figure out where you go next, and what type of exploration method can answer a few more questions. And right now we got a bullseye to drill.
Good. Just a quick question. What was just so I can get a flavour for the style of capital raises you've done, what was the last raise? Kind of, has it been incremental, or have you done a big raise at a different price?
The last raise was 1.9 million in March of 2021. And that was hard dollars, roughly 50-50, 9 cents a share for what we would call the normal or the hard dollars, and flow through was at 13 cents a share. And so now going forward, I would like to do a financing at a dime again, but the bottom line is that we get the hole drilled. I don't think at my stage in my career that I want to take a year or 2 years off or wait for the capital markets. The bottom line is, even though it might be a little bit detrimental, you might have a few extra shares outstanding, it's still a very low number of shares. We're not going to blow it out by any stretch of the imagination, because I understand structure. In fact, in my early days here in Vancouver with BEMA, if a company was getting up to 8 or 10 million shares outstanding, it was considered a rollback target. And it's a whole different world these days, but I want to make a discovery where everybody can make some money, not just have the liquidity increase.
You should go to the Australian markets and see them with their billions of shares. It's something else.
Yes, I have. I have.
Good. David, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Good luck with the capital raise. And once that's in the bag, then we can look at the drill timetable.
Exactly. Well, thank you very much, Merlin. And it was a pleasure to talk to you today.